So let me start this video with the establishing frame, if you will. You're looking at an employer, a prospective employer, whether it be a startup company or established business, and what's the environment like? And how should you judge the perks that they provide? And we'll get into that, free food, gaming consoles that are hanging around, etc., versus the reality of working there. I'm going to list 5 things that you should look for in terms of judging and evaluating your prospective employer. Because you, as somebody who is looking to go work for somebody, you should be judging the company that you might go work for just as much as they're judging you, right? It's got to make sense. So one thing I've noticed with especially startup companies, they tend to want to create a college-like environment to remind young, new developers of their college days. So they'll have game consoles, they'll have TV sets, and they'll have free soft drinks, and they'll have ping pong tables, etc., etc., etc. They'll provide free food a lot of the times. Now, what I would suggest to you is you don't let yourself get charmed by these perks, because these perks are there to incentivize you, because there's other things that might be going on behind the scenes that may not be so obvious that would disincentivize you. So let me just get into the 5 elements here. So the first thing you have to consider is that all perks, free massages, free drinks, free meals, game consoles in front of you, etc., 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 these can all be measured in dollar amounts. How much does it cost you to get a free meal, to buy a meal? How much does it cost you to get a soft drink? How much does it cost you to go out play pool with your friends? Do you need to play pool at work? So keep in mind that any perk that is offered to you can be measured in dollar amounts. So don't let them bedazzle you with the club sandwich perk when they may be taking away something somewhere else. Or maybe not, but I'm just giving you some perspective. So first thing you want to do is pay attention to the hours worked versus the fixed salary. So most of you're going to go work for a company. They're going to pay you a fixed yearly salary. Find out how many hours a week do you have to work, right? That's very important, right? Because you can do the math. Basically, a simple equation I came up with when I was 14 years old. You want to figure out how much you're making per year is you take your per hour rate, multiply it by two, and then times 1,000. So let's say you're getting paid $20 the hour. You multiply that times 2, that's 40. You're making about $40,000 a year if you're working 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. So you can reverse engineer that. So if you're getting paid as a developer, you come in, you're getting paid 50, 60, whatever it is, 1,000 per year. It depends where you live, right? And somebody in San Francisco is going to make much more money dollar-wise than somebody in, Bangladesh or some back country, back town in Quebec or something. You get the idea. So the exact dollar amount is not important. What you have to calculate is how much you're actually earning per hour, given the amount of hours they expect you to work. So you go in there and you find out, do we work overtime often? Do we work weekends often? If so, how often? Do we get paid for the weekends? Do we get paid for the overtime? There's no steadfast rule. Every company, every business will have a different way of operating. So keep that in mind. Pay attention to the hours worked versus your fixed salary. Another thing to consider, is the work environment stressful or stress-free? Look at whether they're working you erratic hours or not, whether the bosses and the people around you are easy to get along with. Hard to judge when you just go in for interviews, but try to get a feel for that, because if you have a jerk for a boss, or your co-workers are a bunch of jerks, or you just don't get along with them, it's not going to be a fun experience for you, no matter how many free Cokes that they give you or how many free slices of pizza that you get. So try to address the stress levels at that place of work. Again, how many hours you work, how your boss treats you, how your coworkers are. These sorts of things are very important. Next point. Do they expect you to work overtime weekends? I covered that before, how many hours work. So that's an issue. You may be a younger person, you don't have a family, maybe you don't have too many extracurricular activities, maybe you don't have family responsibilities, so this may be less of an issue for you. That, by the way, I think is why a lot of startups will rather hire young nerdlings rather than old crusty nerds like me, because they want to be able to, have you work on weekends. They know you don't have a wife and you don't have kids, and that your priority can be your job because you're 22 years old or you're 24 years old. This affects quality of life and stress levels. When you're young, you can get away with some of the stuff, and going to work for a startup that works you on weeknights or weekends, 12-hour days, it can be beneficial for you in certain respect, where you'll learn a lot. On the other hand, you won't have a life if you're working 12-hour days, 6 days a week, right? Keep that in mind. Next point, how is your boss? Is he or she a jerk? Again, I mentioned this before. That's such an important thing. The corporate culture, if you will, is such an important thing. So this is what I will look at in terms of evaluating your potential place of work. The perks can all be measured in dollar amounts, right? Whether it be food or free trips or whatever. Keep that in mind. Pay attention to the hours worked versus your fixed salary. See if they expect you to work long hours during the day, or they're going to have you do weekends, etc. Maybe they'll put you on a pager. Well, pager, that shows you my age. Maybe they put you on your emergency support. So you're gonna have your phone on you. You have to keep it on, and if something happens, you're the go-to person. It could be any time of night or day. That could be a real pain in the butt. I know people still have to deal with that. Try to gauge the work environment. Is it stressful? Is it stress-free? Are super tight deadlines all the time that's going to cause you to pull your hair out? Or it's much more of a relaxed type of environment where development is paced. As I said, do they expect you to work overtime? And finally, how about the personality of your immediate superior and your bosses, the people around you? Are they jerks? Do you get along with them? These things are more important than the little developer bribes like pizza and Coke and a Nintendo game or a PS4 that may be sitting in the office. You buy your own PS4, right? Just a little bonus content. So if you're a watcher of my video, you know I talked about AI and how I said it was going to be much more of an assistive technology rather than a replacing technology. What I mean by that AI in the immediate future, next, I guess, 5 to 10 years, it won't be replacing jobs as much as people might think, as it is just going to be helping you in your job, depending on the circumstances. Certain jobs might get replaced, but software development, coding, so forth, AI is not going to replace that anytime soon. But where you'll see AI come in, and it's just started, as I had predicted, you're seeing it being used in terms of code completion. If I remember, I'll put a link here underneath where you can take a look. So there is I don't know if it's a startup or a guy put together an AI that basically they scan GitHub and they're able to provide inside of certain code editors far superior, so they claim, I haven't looked at it, I haven't tested it, but they claim far superior code completion assistive technology, if you will. Now, any good IDE, any good code editor will do code completion for you, which will literally complete the code that you're typing out. Just makes it easier for you to write code, and I recommend everybody use one. Like a fool, well, not like a fool, but like a hardcore nerd back in the early 90s, my first couple years of writing Java code, I wrote it with Notepad because I was hardcore. I'm not going to use no IDE, integrated development environment. I'm not going to use no code editor. That was stupid. When I finally decided I'm going to use an IDE and code editors, especially the full-blown IDE, my Java coding just went way up because it just helps along the way. Anyhow, so now you have AI being applied in this context where the AI is supposed to be able to provide better code hinting and code completion for you. I'll put a link below under this video. You can check that out. It's a brand new project. The license isn't free, but it just plugs into your code editor. There you go. Just an example of how AI is slowly coming into the workplace place. And like so many other technologies, like all other technologies, it's going to assist us. It's just going to help take away some of the more monotonous work that we don't have to do. Remember, as I tell people all the time, the difference between a great coder and a not so great coder. A great coder has a good understanding of fundamentals, and the hardest thing about building applications is not so much whether you can come up with an algorithm. That's very rare. Algorithm-based training is silliness, in my opinion, overall, with some exceptions. No, it's system design. It's structure. It's overall macro structure of an application and of the development process, which separates the beginners from the pros. But anyhow, AI won't get there anytime soon, but they can definitely help you with some of the detailed work. It's starting anyway. All right, that's it for this bonus content.